All right, so I'm going to be going over how to create the automoblox female figurine in PLTW. Yeah, the old PLTW. And really the focus of creating this is to do a couple of really specific things. One, use geometry from other sketches. Two, use workplane offsets, and then three, to do loft extrusions. So they're trying to get you to practice kind of all three of those steps in the same part file. So I'm going to walk you guys through. This is just be a really quick walkthrough. I'm going to go very fast because it is a longer part. So I will lose all of your interest if I don't go very fast. So first I'm going to start a sketch. I'm going to work it on the top plane because I'm going to be building it going up. And the best way I found to do this in Onshape is to either do a circumscribed or inscribed polygon. It doesn't really matter which in this case. I'm just going to pick inscribed, and you click on the center there, and then make sure you're dragging it out either completely to the left to where you get that constraint popping up, that yellow dotted line, or to the right in the same way. And it defaults to a hexagon. The way you change it after your second click is by moving your mouse left or right. Okay, and it's kind of cool because you can start approximately, the more sides that you get, right, you're getting closer to a circle, but that's beyond this. Anyway, so we're doing a triangle for the base. Great. And so you got your 3x there. And then we're going to put our dimension in for going across that. And that is 0.556. All right. And the other thing I like to do, just in case you didn't get it constrained, is making sure that your triangle has one edge that is vertical. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that I have one edge that is vertical. Okay. All right, now I'm ready to extrude this guy. And in this model, in the directions for this one, there are some things they could have been more clear on, for sure. So, and here's one of them. Down here is where you're looking to see your extrusion, right? For that first triangle, and so that extrusion is 0.32. They do say in the directions, take your measurement from the actual one in class, but that is problematic at this point with distance learning. All right, so now we're ready to start our second sketch, and we're going to create two different ellipses on two different work planes. All right, our first work plane is already established. It's actually the top of that triangle, so we can just start our sketch on the top of that triangle. But what we need is the center of that triangle, and it happens to be the origin because we started our triangle on the origin. And so we're going to go to here, and we're going to use the use geometry tool, and we're going to say copy that geometry. And now the center of that geometry is going to line up our ellipse with our triangle. The center of our ellipse with the center of our triangle. Okay. And then we're going to put our ellipse in here, and there's a larger axis and a smaller axis of an ellipse. Okay. And to dimension in this one, you're just going to select you're going to select the edge of the ellipse and drag it up or drag it to the side. And then one way will give you one of the axes in one direction, and then the other way will give you the other axis in the other direction. So, but here's the thing. On this drawing, it gives you the ellipse in the radius. And so going across, it says the radius is 0.125, but that's only halfway. In the measurement that we're giving here is the diameter measurement, and so we've got to have 2. It's going all the way across. So we've got to multiply by 2. Right, so we get 0.25. And then we're going to go the other direction, and this one is going to be 0.105 times 2 for the same reason, because this measurement is only going halfway across. All right, so now we're done with that sketch and we're ready for our work plane. And so here's one of the major things we're trying to get across to you in this exercise is the use of workplane offsets. So in Onshape, after you've completed your sketch, up in the top part, we're going to work on our plane. We're going to select where we want it to start, and then you can see as soon as I clicked on it, it made a workplane way up there, right? But we don't want it way up there. And it's very hard to read, very difficult. It is 0.19. So we bring that back down. And now we should be able to see that that first section is pretty close to the triangle. And the cool thing about loft extrusions is that you've established the distance that the extrusion will go based on your distance of your work plane, right? It's established by how far this work plane is from that triangle. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. So now that we have our work plane, you start a new sketch. You can start the sketch here, but you can see it's kind of difficult to select that sketch in the drawing. So the best place I've actually found in Onshape to select the sketch is actually click on the work plane in the left-hand side, okay? And now that sketch is started on that work plane, and we're ready to borrow that geometry again, or use that geometry. We're going to use the center. And what this is going to do is almost like create a line that goes all the way down the center of the part, making sure that all of our ellipses are concentric. Okay, concentric meaning sharing the same center. So if you're looking at down on top of it, it looks like all of the ellipses are sharing the same center. All right, so now we're going to go ellipse, and make sure that your major axes are lining up with each other. So kind of the longer axes are going with the longer axis of the previous ellipse, and then we're ready to dimension it. So our major axis for the second one is 0.14 times 2. And then, oh, this is going to be a long video. 0.11 times 2. Okay. And now we're ready to do our loft extrusion. Okay, got our first little section there. Next up, start another sketch. It's going to be the same practice all the way through this. Start a sketch, make a work plane, dimension it, loft extrude. It's like, just repeat, 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 repeat. All right, use the center, create your ellipse, and now we're going to actually pull dimensions from down here. So the dimensions on this one are 0.4 and 0.6. Okay, so these are, you don't have to double them anymore. So they went from the, you know, measuring using the radius and to measuring using the diameter. I don't know the reason for that. I'm not an engineer. I'm just an engineering teacher. There may be some standard for, well, like when you use the diameter or when you use the radius. Kind of like when you have a circle, a complete circle, you use the diameter, and when you have an arc, you use a radius. So there are rules like that. And I just have not taken the time to look up whether that is a similar rule to this. So this one's 0.6 across, and then this one is 0.4. Done. Make another work plane offset. And this offset, now we're looking at these guys right here. We're looking at this offset. That next offset is 0.36. Start another sketch on that work plane. Make an ellipse. Again, make sure your major axes are lining up with each other. This guy is 0.39 for the major, 0.31 for the minor, and now it's time to loft. Okay, here's where people are running into issues with the loft, all right? And it's kind of tricky, I'm not gonna lie. It is definitely tricky. In Onshape, if you select this one, it's very confused. Are you selecting the inner ellipse or the outer ellipse? It doesn't know. And then if you try to select this one, it's going to give you an error, right? Your loft is red. So the best way that I figured out a way around it, and maybe there are other ways too, I'm open to anybody's ideas out there, is to actually, instead of clicking in the, the workspace, the three-dimensional workspace, click in your list here and select Sketch 4, select Sketch 5, and then it makes that a little bit easier to do. Okay. All right. We are ready for our next workplane offset. And that next offset is going to be 0.34. Okay. So it's up there now. And now we're ready for our next ellipse. We're going to start it on plane 3. Okay, select the center of your circle and then create your ellipse. We're going to use that geometry from the center, remember. Make your next ellipse. And again, make sure that your major and minor axes are lining up with each other. 0.76 for the major. 0.54 for the minor. And you're ready to do your last loft extrusion. So some of you might be wondering, well, why did I have to create a sketch here? You didn't have to create a sketch here for this last loft because we're going to borrow the previous geometry. So Onshape will let you just select it and then select the other one. And so some of you are you're able to use the add version of the extrusion. Some of you, it's requiring to use new. I honestly don't know at this point. I haven't used Onshape enough to know all the nuances like that. But for my class, I'm not going to require it to be add because that's beyond the scope of this. The things that I really want you to learn are using the sketch geometry. So like if you're in a sketch, know how to borrow geometry from other sketches. Okay. I want you to know how to use that workplane offset. And then I want you to know how to use that loft extrusion. Those are really the three main things that I want you to be able to do on this. Okay? So, enjoy. Hopefully the video is not too long. Peace out.